Good evening, everybody. My name is Patrick, and welcome to Tech Tuesday. Because every Tuesday, this is where we are. This is what we talk about. We talk about photos, videos, and everything related to such. And so, sit right there, enjoy the show. Now, the other day I was at this event. I was actually taking photos and everything. Then one of the guests for my client came in and showed me photos that she had taken with her phone. The photos were really, really nice. She was like, do I really need a photographer for my event? Abonga level simu yangu napiga picha poa. And I was like, you know what? That's a really good question. As photographers, are we actually coming to extinction considering the kind of phones and the kind of quality of gear that is coming out in phones, like the clarity, the level of, because right now with phones, you can actually adjust everything that you need to adjust on a professional camera. You can actually adjust the aperture, the ISO, and even the shutter speed. Now, my question to you as an upcoming photographer, do you really think there is work for you? Is there really much more work left for you guys, considering that the most number of photos taken on a daily basis are actually taken by a phone, not with a camera? And here you are, spending so much money getting a camera that is at least worth like $1,000. That is even minus accessories, minus mem card, minus the bag, minus all those other expensive stuff. Do you really think it's worth it? Where else you can just easily just get, let's say, an iPhone 14 Pro Max, for basically just the same amount of money. You don't need to buy the accessories, and even the accessories for the phone are actually cheaper than those for a camera. Do you think it's worth it? So let's dive in and see whether it's actually worth it. Now, the biggest difference between a phone quality image and a camera image is the size of the sensor.
Sensor sizes come in many options these days, and usually the smaller sensors are found in cheaper cameras, with the larger types being available in more expensive shooters. Compact cameras as well as mobile phones mostly use sensors which range from 0.15 to about 0.5 centimeters squared in area. The most expensive and professional DSLR cameras have full-frame sensors which have an effective area of 8.6 centimeters squared. There is another rare type of sensor called the medium format sensor. It is found on the most expensive cameras you can find and is not commonly used on a mainstream level. It has an area of 21.59 centimeters squared. So why is sensor size so important? Well, for starters, the size of the sensor determines the amount of light that is used to create an image. So a larger sensor can acquire more information than a smaller one and therefore produce a better image. If you have two cameras with the same amount of megapixels but different sensor sizes, the one with the larger sensor will usually produce better photos because the individual pixels are much larger on the bigger sensor, also giving you better dynamic range. The purpose of a pixel is to absorb light and produce an electrical signal that is then converted into a digital image signal. So the more light the sensor can absorb, the stronger the image signal will be. A stronger signal needs less amplification, simply meaning you get less noise with a bigger sensor and better low light performance. Bigger sensors also give you better depth of field or higher quality bokeh for any given scene with the same settings applied, as demonstrated in these two photos. It's pretty obvious to see that the larger sensor came out with a smoother bokeh. Here's a diagram showing a few of the most common image sensors found in compact cameras, cell phones, and DSLRs. Please note that the sizes depicted are relative to one another. Underneath, I've also given an example of a device that uses each of the sensors. When talking about sensors, you cannot ignore crop factor, which is how much the image is cropped in other sensor sizes relative to a full-frame sensor. We'll go more into crop factor and focal length multipliers in a separate video. In terms of film and video, the sensor size phenomena reaches a gray area of diminishing returns in that there's not too much a larger sensor necessarily gives you, especially when you consider pricing of larger sensor video cameras. Sensor size doesn't make a huge difference in video unless you're going for extremely shallow or extremely deep depth of field and shooting a lot of low light footage, since you can basically compensate for everything else by picking the right focal length and aperture. So the advantages of larger sensors are better depth of field performance, better low light performance, better dynamic range, and less diffraction. The disadvantages are cameras with large sensors are very expensive. Cameras with larger sensors are also generally big in size and heavy. And finally, equipment that is used with such cameras is generally expensive. So larger sensors are found in expensive cameras, which require larger lenses and equipment, which is also expensive. So at a significantly higher cost, you get more control and more creative flexibility in the way that you shoot. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video was useful to you. Please leave a like or a comment, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more videos like this. See you folks in the next one.
Now remember, when it comes to sensors, we have got what we call a full frame sensor. Okay, we have got what we call an APC sensor, and then we have got what we call a half sensor. Now, with all of those, that means that the quality you get from the phone, you can only blow it to X size. The quality you get on a camera, you can blow it to X size. And also the quality that you shoot when you're shooting with a full frame camera, okay, as you can see, it's really different. So when somebody asks you, do you really think there is future and is there hope for us as photographers? Yes, there's a very, very big future, but the only thing is that we have to be adaptive. You have to adapt. Once, sometime back there was film, and then we came to digital. Okay, now after digital we came from digital DSLRs, now we're in mirrorless. And the difference that you get when you're shooting with a mirrorless camera, like I said before, and the difference that you get when you're shooting with a DSLR, they're like worlds apart. I cannot even overemphasize how worlds apart it is. And the advantage of shooting with a mirrorless is that you actually get to see exactly what you're shooting before you even click. Now, the shortcomings of a mirrorless camera is that if you decide to use it for studio shoots, let me just tell you, okay, I've tried it. Mirrorless cameras are the worst when it comes to studio shoots, because the settings that you have to put on your camera before your strobes hit is actually very, very different. So one thing, like I told you, being adaptive to what is happening. So phones are really good. Like I said, there are places where you'd want to go, but then again, you cannot go because of the size of the camera that you're carrying. So you need probably to carry something more compact. But then even if you carry something more compact, then there is a problem to it. So then a phone would work in that case. And here's the good news. Okay, I've been looking at what is happening around the world and what is happening in terms of the news and everything. And then there is this phone, you know, this, let me say, this underdog phone called Xiaomi. Xiaomi has actually released a phone that has got a really big lens and actually a sensor that is actually, when you're looking at the camera, you'll actually be able to see the sensor. So as you can see above here, so there is that sensor that you can actually see when you're taking, and it's actually bigger than what most people like to think. In that, iPhone has the best camera, but I think this new phone that has a camera, but in this case it's actually a camera that has a phone, is actually way better than what iPhone can produce.
This is the Xiaomi 13 Ultra. It has the most sophisticated, most ludicrously spec'd out camera system on any phone ever. So I thought, does it beat the most popular flagship phone on the planet, the iPhone? I mean, it definitely wins a point in the unboxing department. Not even because this is some sort of extraordinary presentation, but because at least it does come with everything you need. You get an insert on top, which has the SIM ejector, a couple of manuals, and a hard case. This is kind of a weird shape. And then right at the very bottom, a 90-watt charger, which is surprisingly compact for what's still quite a high wattage. Anyways, where I was actually even more impressed by this phone was its night mode. Let's be very clear, the iPhone is good at night, but the Xiaomi 13 Ultra feels not like, it's kind of close, could go either way, genuinely like there is no competition. Like, this is a photo from both phones' main cameras. You can see so many little parts where the 13 Ultra is just picking up a little bit more information, or is a little bit sharper. But where you notice the difference even more is flicking to the ultra-wide cameras, because Xiaomi is both wider while also being more detailed. I was expecting Xiaomi to also steamroll when it came to the zoom shots, since Apple's zoom camera is just not equipped for the dark, so it uses its main camera and just digital zooms in.
I mean, to be fair, so long as there are lights around, the Xiaomi does tend to win. But it's just when you go to those super dark scenarios that Apple's artificial intelligence algorithm does seem to just creep out ahead a little bit, and Xiaomi freaks out.
But the video really impressed me. I wouldn't go as far as to say that this has better video than the iPhone, but it's not really worse. The sharpness, the stability, the dynamic range. This feels like a big thing to say, but for all the time that I've used this, it hasn't felt like a compromised video experience.
Now, on to some latest news. Let's see what is happening around the world. Like I told you, today we're going to be looking at the future of photography. Now, Canon has actually, now we're looking at Canon rumors. Canon says that there is actually a Canon RF 200-500 f4 update on it. What does an RF? The RF is basically just the lens for the mirrorless version of Canon. So now you know. And then now we also have got a minor Canon R6 Mark II firmware update is coming soon. So for those of you who have been shooting with the R6, just know that the camera experience is just about to get better because they are about to release a new firmware that is going to make your experience even better. Now, let's see some of the features that the camera has been having, the issues that it has been having for them to actually just release a firmware. Okay, so here it says that we received 2 reports of brand new Canon R6 Mark II camera bodies coming with firmware 1.14, the latest firmware, and the downloadable firm version is 1.12. So they're actually just scooping it up by a 0.2. Well, which I think it's really good. And if you look at your camera, then you should be able to know whether you actually have the latest firmware or not. So the latest one is actually 1.14. Okay, so the latest downloadable firmware is 1.12. So what is happening? They're actually releasing a new firmware 1.12. So most of the cameras, I'm sure, is actually 1.14. Then now let's skip to and go to Nikon. Nikon was my first love. So let's see what they're actually saying. Nikon rumors. Like I say, regardless of the body that you're using, any camera, the difference, actually, what matters is the skill of you as a photographer. The tool will always change. Okay, if you're a driver, it doesn't really matter the kind of car that you're driving, as long as it has the capability of doing what you want it to do, then you are the one that matters. So now, for those of us who have already gone to Nikon and they've gone to the mirrorless end of it, so there has been a small problem with those of you who are thinking or actually have even bought the Nikon Z8, the strap eyelet. So the strap eyelet is where you actually hook your straps before you swing it. So like this is the strap, so they're talking about this eyelet. Now, the Z8, the problem that it has is after a bit of bumping, let's say if you're shooting an event or a wedding, you'll have to keep on running and probably you've just swung it around your shoulder. After some time, what happens is that eyelet actually comes out. So then now, we definitely know what happens. It comes out, strap swings down, camera falls. So what they're doing is they're actually improving on that bit. So that is what Nikon is working on as we speak. So these are some of the news that we have for you for today. And like I said, is there a future in photography? Yes, there is a future. The only thing is that you need to improve your skills and you also need to just know your way around the camera. But for more news, tune in next week as we talk about more cameras and what is there. So keep shooting and let's have this conversation next week. Kwaherini.
Jared Polinfrono's Photo.com, and this is your Photo News Fix. This fix is brought to you by Riverside, which is the easiest way for you and your team to record, edit, and share professional video content and podcasts from anywhere in the world.
What happened to your hair?
We've all seen those podcasts that use Zoom to record audio and video, and it comes across amateurish. Well, with Riverside, crappy audio and video for your recordings is a thing of the past. Why, you may ask? Great question, Jared. Because even if your guest has a terrible internet connection, you won't end up with crappy or choppy low-quality video because you get local recording of your video up to 4K, but with continuous uploading at the highest quality. This means as soon as you end your podcast or recording, all the original files from you and your guests are ready to be downloaded and edited as you see fit. Stephen and I have been testing it out and love that we not only have super clean video, but uncompressed crystal clear audio to work with as well. On top of that, we want to have more guests on Raw Talk, and with one click, our guests can seamlessly join from anywhere in the world right in their browser. This is honestly a no-brainer. If you've been wanting to start your own video or audio podcast with guests, it doesn't get much easier than Riverside. Head on over to bit.ly/FroRS and use the code FRO20 to get 20% off today. First up, let's kick the week off with some rumor news from both Canon and Nikon.
Your hair is different.
Canon Rumors had shared some recent optical formulas that were filed for potential wide-angle RF lenses. First, they said that they were RFS lenses, aka for crop sensor cameras, but then they made a correction and said that the lenses might be for full-frame cameras. The two rumored lenses are a 9 to 18mm f4 and a 10 to 18mm f4. Now in the past there was also a rumor for an 11 to 24 f4. Now this is interesting because Sony has a 12 to 24 2.8 and Nikon has a 14 to 24 2.8. So would a 9 or 10mm be too wide? And is f4 a compromise that's worth having? Now personally I'd love to see something like an 11 to 20 f2 full frame myself, but hopefully we'll know some answers soon.
When will then be now?
Now let's move on to the Nikon rumor news for the week. Nikon Rumors is saying that a Z35 1.2 S-line lens might be around the corner in August or September. Even though there is a 35mm lens on the Nikon roadmap, there is no official word that it will be a 1.2, but since they already have a 35 1.8 and no 1.4s are on the market as of now in Z-mount, I think it's safe to say that all maps lead to the 35 1.2. This would be an amazing lens to add to an already strong professional Z lineup that includes both a 50-1.2 and an 85-1.2. Now there's also rumors of a 135 1.8 that's around the corner as well, and if both of those lenses come true and come true soon, that would put Nikon in a very strong native glass position against Sony and Canon. What I mean by that is quality native glass, not the we have 50 lenses for E-mount, whoop-de-freaking-do, because some of them absolutely suck. But then on the flip side, they also have Tamron and Sigma and that L-mount Alliance people too. Now what do you think about Nikon's lens offerings? Let me know down below. Next up, the L-mount Alliance is growing.
You got bigger.
I know it's been a while since I've said those words, and I love to tell you that it felt good, but I can't fake this stuff. It doesn't feel good. Anyway, there's not just one, but two companies who are joining. There's Samyang and Astroglide. I mean, Astro Design, who I've actually never heard of. Anyway, Leica Camera AG said this on their Twitter. I wonder if they actually have a Threads, though I don't really care because they both suck and are a time suck. Nonetheless, they said, exciting news, Astro Design and Samyang Optics have joined the L-mount Alliance. Now, the reason I didn't scream it right there is because I'm quoting them. It's not me saying it. Bringing the total number of companies to 7. This collaboration will lead to innovative products benefiting a wide range of photo and video applications.
Right.
Now, did you know that there were 7 members of this closed alliance? That's right, it's not even open to everyone because you need to be accepted in, like at a frat, which I'd never even apply for a frat. Now, I guess it's kind of nice that the alliance is growing and people have more options, but can you see a Leica shooter buying a Samyang lens for their Leica?
No.
Nah, me either. Now here, let's try something. If you own an L-mount camera, leave a comment below that says, I'm part of the alliance. I bet there won't be more than 7 people. 7! Speaking of 7 people, we've got well more than 7 people who listen to our podcast every week. Thankfully, because if not, I'd be upset. Now, if you're not one of them just yet, please check out new episodes every Friday by searching for Fronos Photo Raw Talk Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And finally, we wrap up this week's Photo News Fix with Sony's new 70-200 f4 G Master Macro 2. Now, I took this lens with me to Chicago to use at Wrigley Field and see how it handled. It's a light and compact lens, which also has macro capability. Now, Sony claims, and I quote, "This is the first lens to offer half macro capability." Is that kind of like getting half and half in your coffee throughout the zoom range, with a maximum magnification of 0.5 times. Also, if you attach a 2x teleconverter, which takes your f4 to an f8, which I probably wouldn't recommend doing, you do get a life-size 1-to-1 macro shooting through the entire zoom range. The lens weighs in at only 1.7 pounds without the tripod collar, which honestly isn't even needed on a lens like this. Now, I think everyone's grandmother should be able to hand-hold this lens without needing any support. Even, not the ones that are dead. My grandmothers are all dead. And yeah, I'm talking about you, Grandma Jacobs and Grandma Moses and Grandma Simpson and Grandma Smith. You take that, Grandma.
Oh, your dear old granny.
Now, the lens does feel nice in the hands and was easy to use during the Phillies game, which allowed me to grab images like the ones you're about to see on the screen. Now, I captured these images with the new Sony a6700. They are sharp, colorful, and look really nice. The focus was lightning quick and accurate as expected, but this is a $1,700 lens in the US and probably a ton more in Canada.
You guys are dick!
Now, for that money, I don't know that it's actually worth it, at least for me. I'm a 2.8 or better type of guy, so maybe a Tampon 70-180 2.8 might be a better option and saves you $700. But there's also no doubt that the Sony version will blow the Tampon way out of the Red Sea. Now look, if you want a compact zoom f4 and money is no object to you, then it might be perfect because it's a fantastic lens. And there you have it, Jared Polin, FronosPhoto.com. See ya.